All right, we'll pick up with part two here. So we just finished caucuses. Now we're going to talk about primaries. Then we're going to talk about a couple other things in the presidential nomination itself. So primaries are statewide elections, something we are much more familiar with, where voters choose the candidate or their delegates, if it's the presidential election, to the national convention. And we talked about this last part before this part of the unit started. So we know what closed, open, and blanket or jungle primaries are, so we don't have to go over those again. Just remember that Georgia has open primaries. And again, most states use this system. So whatever 12 states and territories use caucuses, so the rest of them use primaries. New Hampshire is the first. It's 1 week after Iowa, so it's also very important. So it's the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary that are really important. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then, as I said before, each party has a different system of allocating their delegates from their primaries or caucuses, because it's a party choice in that case. So probably the most important concept here coming up now is what we call front loading. You have to know this idea backwards and forwards. And so its definition is the recent tendency, recent meaning past 10 to 15 years, of states to hold their primaries early in the calendar to capitalize on media attention. Remember, the last part of this, the first video today, talked about the primaries being from primaries and caucuses being from February to June, right? Well, those ones in May and June have started to say, hey, we're important too, and we're going to move ourselves up. Okay, that's what front loading is. So nominations are generally decided earlier and earlier. You have to know that a result or a consequence of front loading is nominations are decided sooner. California, the biggest haul for delegates for both Republicans and Democrats, because it's the biggest state, used to have theirs in June when virtually everything was decided by then. So they, in essence, didn't matter. So they've moved themselves up, and the other ones that have been June and in May have moved themselves up because they want to matter. They want their primary or caucuses to matter as well. So again, late states used to matter. They don't now as much. And say in the past 30-ish years, late states didn't matter as much. Now they want to matter. So they're front loading themselves because each state can decide essentially on their own when they want their primaries or caucuses when they want them to fall on what dates. So they're front loading themselves. Okay. We used to have things like Super Tuesday. That's not really called. Sometimes you'll see its name again. There used to be like 15 or 20 states having their primary on the same day, and it was called Super Tuesday. 16 of them were this year, this past one, but this whole year was weird because it was all virtual and everything else. So there was big primaries on those days too. But about 35 total states and territories are in March. March is behind my head there. That means almost 2/3 now, because you have states and territories, so you probably have like 56 or 57 total either primaries or caucuses. And that means like about 2/3 of them or so are in March. And that's what front loading is. So you have to understand that concept. You have to understand what it does. You have to understand the consequences. You have to understand why, and then the results, the consequences. And again, so March can go a long way in determining who is going to win the nominations for president, is what we're talking about here. So let's talk about that system. Is it good? There is entirely, and this is true, this is acknowledged by everybody, including Iowa and New Hampshire, that there's way too much attention to those early states. Why should Iowa and New Hampshire be so important? They're tiny. They're tiny in electoral numbers. They're tiny in delegate numbers. Why should they matter so much? But they do. If you do poorly in Iowa, you might be done. And that's all there is to it. Or if you do okay in Iowa and poorly in New Hampshire, the next week, you might be done. Instead of waiting for it, what if you do great in the South? What if you do great other places? Everything might dry up before you even get a chance to get there. And so that's part of the flaw in this system that we'll talk about. You'll actually have an assignment next time, the next class. So Wednesday, Thursday, there'll be an assignment about maybe ways to modify or reform that system. But it is a concern. It is an issue. Sometimes does money play too big of a role? Because it could, because the more money you have, the better you can do in some of those states. Whereas you might run out of money by the time you can get through to other states. And also remember, participation is very low in these. The people who vote in primaries or attend caucuses, especially those who attend caucuses, are the most determined and the most committed. So therefore, for primaries and caucuses, you are going to get, depending on what you have there, you are going to get more partisan candidates, especially out of caucuses, than you might out of, say, primaries, or at least states with open primaries instead of closed primaries. So participation is low and sort of unrepresentative as well. And then some say it gives the media too much power because they broadcast all of this and, on all that attention. So the what can be done is going to be an assignment for the next class, like I said. So the Wednesday, Thursday assignment will be about doing this. So there'll be a revisitation of this idea. Okay, so let's go on to the presidential convention here. So the national convention for president. That is the official anointing of the party's nominees. So it's the official, very important word there. It's the official saying, yes, Biden is our nominee, and Harris is the VP nominee, and yes, Trump is the nominee, and Pence is the VP nominee. That's where it officially happens. Okay? It used to be dramatic. It's not anymore, and the reason it's not is because the outcome is always known. At least since the 70s, the outcome is always known beforehand. So it's sort of a fait accompli. Give you an idea of drama. In 1924, it took 103 ballots at the convention to select who the nominee was going to be, to get somebody to get a majority of the delegates, and that's a lot of votes. So didn't know going in, and all of that, of course, to lose to Calvin Coolidge. The delegates are now locked, and that's why the drama isn't there. The delegates are locked to their nominee. So if Biden got 40% of the 40% of the delegates for Georgia, those 40% of the people are assigned to Biden, and they're locked to Biden. On the first ballot, they must vote for Biden. If there were not to be a majority, and that would be known beforehand going in, after that first vote, then those delegates are free to vote for anybody else. But since everybody knows everything and somebody already has a majority going in since at least the 1970s, there's not really much drama there. But television has another effect. There's virtually no drama, so a lot of people don't watch. Ratings are low. You don't need to know these numbers, of course. Just give you an idea. In 2000, 22 million people watched the last day of the Democratic Convention, whereas just the next week, some 58 million is the number behind my head, watched the CBS Survival Final. So a little bit less than. But what it's turned into, and this is really important for them, for the parties, it has turned into a 4-day campaign commercial for the nominee. And that is what television has done for it as well. It is a 4-day commercial. Everything is positive for them in that. So this also gets to the point is why have it? If it's not drama or whatnot, why even have the convention at all? Well, here's some reasons. Number one, it's a rallying point for the party faithful. If you are a faithful Democrat or a faithful Republican, you are jazzed at this convention. You are watching it and you getting revved up for the campaign. You know there's 2 months left after this and you're all ready to go. It's a big rallying point. It also is a reward. All those people that are delegates, the vast majority of them are regular, plain old general people from the state. Okay, they might be little powerful people in the state, but they don't get to rub shoulders with the bigwigs. They get to here. Plus, it's a massive 4-day party for them. That's one of the things that it's a reward for those grassroots people who become delegates, who have done a lot of work, for them to go to the national convention and talk with other people and have that camaraderie with other people and have a big giant 4-day party, which is one of the benefits of it. So it's a reward. It is, of course, carefully scripted. You can watch it. You can watch all of it on some of the cable news networks or, of course, C-SPAN. And it's scripted from the moment one to the ending, and it shows to show the party in their best light, like this is big 4-day campaign commercial. One of the important things that does happen here, though, is the party platform, which we talked about in the last segment of this unit. It's the statement and goals of the policies for the next 4 years, and that is something that's developed and voted on at the convention, so it does have an important function there. And this schedule, you don't have to know, just give you an idea of the most important things that happen on each day. The keynote address on day 1, the platform is decided and voted on day 2, the nominating and actual voting for president is done on day 3, the VP nomination voting, and then, of course, the acceptance speeches, which are the biggest part and the biggest thing, are on day 4. And then when that's over, the last thing that happens, except of course this last time because it was virtual, is you get the balloon drop. Once the candidate is done, that's the last event. The candidate's done speaking. It's the highest moment of the convention, and you get the balloon drop, the convention finale. That was Clinton's in 2016, so it's the last full convention we had, and then this was Trump's in 2016 as well. So that's the big event. The last thing, the candidates are on stage. You can see on the one on the left, there's a little white figure under the under some of the balloons out in front on that little extension of the stage. That's Hillary Clinton in white. And Trump is in on the right side. Trump is out on the little extension of the stage. He's in a dark suit, so it's the dark figure, and then the white figure would be Melania Trump there. So that's the last final big day. So okay, so we're set to go. You have 3 videos to watch. That's your assignment today. They're all about caucuses, and I'll write that in the email as well, just to make sure. So watch them. One's 4 minutes long, and one's 8 minutes long, one's 9 minutes long. And it's just interesting and kind of interesting to see what happens because those things don't happen here in Georgia. So you'll get a look at that. So take a look at those, and we'll see you on Wednesday, Thursday for